I took out my newly acquired Czech vz.24 pistol to shoot at some steel. Let's see how it does. That was actually one clip of several where I had issues with this pistol. It would shoot fine, then it would just stop working. It seemed like light strikes at first, but there wouldn't be a mark on the primer at all. Let's get this disassembled to get a closer look at what could be the problem. The vz.24 was the main army pistol, adopted by newly formed Czechoslovakia in 1924. It fires .380 auto and has a locked breech action with a rotating barrel, which uses this camming block on the recoil spring to unlock the barrel lugs from the slide. It's not a blowback, like the much more common vz.24 pistol chambered in .32 ACP that saw German use in World War II. Here with the slide off, I think I see what's wrong. The firing pin is inside here, and it's held on at the rear by this block behind the rear sight that slides in from the top. The problem is that the firing pin is stuck somewhere in the middle of its travel. The tip isn't protruding, and the rear isn't either. In fact, you can see the rear of it here within the retaining block. When firing earlier, the hammer was striking nothing. Reaching in with a punch, I can push the firing pin in so that the tip is exposed, but it doesn't come back far enough to be struck by the hammer. It is a sprung firing pin, but for some reason, it's not pushing it back. Let's pull it out to get a closer look. I'll push it in, then slide the retaining block upwards, and be careful the firing pin doesn't shoot out the back. Before I remove it all the way, first note how far it can be pushed in. A good 1/8 inch or so from flush at the rear. More on this in a bit. At first glance, the firing pin doesn't look quite right. The surface looks poor. The tip is a bit lopsided. The shoulder right behind it is mushroomed out. And on the far end, it fits within the retaining block. But certain areas seem to bind up, which is what is causing the issue. I found an online diagram with measurements for a vz.24 firing pin. I'll throw them up on screen while I measure the one here. Some dimensions match closely enough, but the overall length does not. That is why it was able to be pushed in further than it should have been earlier. That's an issue, because with the firing pin too short, during firing, the end could leave the retaining block. Then there's nothing holding the block in, which actually happened to me right here. I'm not sure where this firing pin came from. Maybe it's a homemade replacement. The surface finish, and most of all, the mushrooming point me to that conclusion. I can make a better one. The diagram referenced earlier only had the lengths of each section, not the diameters, though those are easy enough to infer. The tip has to fit within the hole in the breech face. This section has to fit inside the spring. The largest section has to fit within the recess in the slide. And the end here needs to better fit the retaining block. This is a piece of a grade 8 bolt, which is fairly good steel, comparable to 4140. All things considered, this should be a fairly straightforward turning job. Here's the completed firing pin. Compared to the original, or at least the one that came with the pistol, it's noticeably longer. Let's see how it fits within the slide. The spring slides on, and it fits in the slide. Pushing with a punch, you can see the tip. I'll add the retaining block by pushing the firing pin in, then sliding the block down as I remove the punch. Then I can test it out. Unlike before, there's no binding that I can tell. Though under normal circumstances, with a round in the chamber, it can't travel this far forward, only about half this distance. Only when it's empty can it go far enough forward for the retaining block to slide down like this, which it wants to do here only because of gravity. Now that I know the firing pin is a good fit and will likely work well, I need to heat treat it for durability. The whole firing pin doesn't need to be hard, just the tip and the end. I'll heat it until it's red, then quench. The firing pin is now very hard. To trade some hardness for durability, I'll temper it in the oven. I'll set it for 450 degrees and leave it in here for about an hour. The firing pin is done. I gave it a light coating of oil. I'll get the pistol reassembled, starting with the firing pin spring, then fit it in the slide. I'll push the firing pin all the way in to be able to drop in the retaining block. Then I can slide in the barrel, making sure that the lugs are in the correct orientation, and secure it with the barrel bushing. Then comes the recoil spring, with the camming block over the barrel lug. With this pistol, I find it easiest to leave the slide upside down before turning it over to install the takedown pin. Which takes some fiddling to find the right spot. Once it's together, I'll give it a quick function test, and then head out to the range. With this new firing pin, I'm basically shooting this pistol for the first time. I'm still learning about it, like how this ammo seems tight for the chamber. And where it's hitting, which seems to be mostly to the left. That was more of a function test than a test of the pistol's accuracy. The firing pin survived, and the pistol didn't experience any light strikes, or more accurately to what I was experiencing before, any no strikes. I'm glad I got this pistol working reliably. I'll have to bring it out to the range more often to get some practice with it. Thanks for watching.